Hi, I'm Richard Rosso, Director of Financial Planning for RIA Advisors. And, always on our podcast, we want to bring interesting guests. And when I first heard Cindy talk, a lot of bells started to go off in my head, especially, listen, I'm a financial guy. I'm not a love guy. But Cindy is a family lawyer. She's an author. She's a speaker. And she's helped countless couples create strong foundations for loving relationships by crafting caring prenuptial agreements and peaceful divorce settlements. So she's the founder of Love, Money, and Law, her passion project that supports conscious dialogue about relationship and family law. So she's got seminars, podcasts. She could be reached through her websites at HoustonPrenupAttorney.com and LoveMoneyLaw.com and social media pages. That doesn't seem to go together, Love, Money, and Law, but it does, right? Please welcome Cindy Hyde to the podcast. So, Cindy, when we talked, and I meet with couples all the time, right, who are living together or looking to live together, and there are a lot of studies out there that financially, that one of those people, or even maybe both, might be ultimately on shaky ground. And you enlightened me about these cohabitation agreements. So I wanted you to explain what the heck is a cohabitation agreement.
Well, hi, Richard. Thank you very much for having me today. And I'm happy to talk with you about exactly what they are. You could think of a cohabitation agreement as a prenuptial agreement without the prenuptials, or without the nuptials, rather. It is a contract between an unmarried couple that enjoys an intimate economic and social relationship who are intentionally choosing to live together without marriage.
Okay. So, on the surface, it makes a lot of sense to have this, especially with so many couples living together. What is it not? What does it not do?
Well, it is not a contract where sexual services are used as part of the consideration for the contract.
Oh.
If there's ever a lawsuit to enforce the terms of your contract, and this is found to be the case, a court will not hold the contract to be valid, and it is therefore unenforceable. So there's a very important distinction to make between, okay, what are we really doing here? We're actually sharing our lives together and everything that means and involves for a long-term committed relationship. This is not something to be taken lightly in the sense that, oh, here's a rather a darker side that could be inferred from what these are about.
I like that. So what it's really doing is laying the foundation for something long-term, or at least it should.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to go to the trouble and the expense and the whole process of creating a contract that concerns basically everything about your relationship, it's really it makes a statement about your level of commitment to each other, and also how you're presenting yourself to the community. Sometimes, marriage is not the ultimate goal for couples for many reasons, and that could be the case at any age. But at the same time, they want to make a statement to family and friends that they are in a committed relationship that falls short of marriage.
No, and I think that lays this down. And I know you're going to share some statistics and trends about this, but I would think that cohabitation or living together is very, very popular.
It's becoming much more so. In fact, it's estimated now that between 60 and 70% of couples will live together before getting married. And for stats that reflect an age group between 30 and 44 years, this number has doubled since 1990. So it's definitely a trend, and I think cohabitation agreements are definitely on the rise.
So there's even more of a reason for creating a cohabitation agreement to protect yourselves. And I think, like you said, it lays out this pathway of, hey, this isn't just us getting together here, and we're not roommates, right? This is something more serious. So give us some really strong reasons, and I want to explore this with you, for creating a cohabitation agreement.
Well, like I said, these contracts can be very comprehensive and cover numerous aspects of a couple's relationship, including their finances, property, children, and everyday living responsibilities. You can also include personal services such as cooking or cleaning, couple time, free time, and even sexual frequency, although these particulars are usually not legally enforceable. But most importantly, the very exercise of working through the terms of these agreements provide security and assurances because, like I said, it shows a deep level of mutual commitment and consideration for the relationship. Now, the two main reasons, though, for creating a cohabitation agreement is, first of all, to clearly state that you're not married and that you should not be considered married just because you're living together. And in a state like Texas, where we have common law marriage, that's a very important distinction to make.
So that's really important. So when you have this agreement, correct me if I'm wrong. So if I put this agreement into place, that doesn't mean that it's going toward being a common law marriage?
No,
Or-
there are very specific
Okay.
guidelines statutorily in Texas that are necessary to create a common law marriage.
I see.
The most important being is that you are holding yourselves out as being married as a couple. In other words, you introduce your partner, this is my husband and this is my wife, etc. And perhaps you're doing creating documents that are styled as Mr. and Mrs. or you're using the same last names. But most importantly, it's got to be a mutual agreement that you both are married. So you can't have the situation where, you're living together and one person just wants that to be a marriage and the other one has no intention for that to be the marriage. And that's called a lawsuit later on when things break up. And so you've got to have very strong evidence to show, if you're trying to refute that claim, that this was not a marriage ever. We were simply living together as roommates and close friends.
It would be cool to introduce somebody. This is my cohabit, Cindy.
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to think of what I would do, Brent. What would I call this? This is my habit I can't break, Cindy. What would I do? This
is my main man or
yes.
my main lady, or I don't know.
This is my main habit.
This is my love. Yes.
So obviously, really good reasons for creating it. Really sets apart what's common law, what isn't. What's another good reason why you would create a cohabitation agreement?
Certainly financial reasons. This is why you create an agreement. Primarily is to stipulate all the financial responsibilities and to set out what you have, what he or she has, and that there's no confusion there in the event there is a breakup down the road. So let's say, for example, one person owns the house and the companion person is helping pay down the mortgage while you're living together. So what happens if the couple splits? So that's something that you can specify in your agreement. Well, I'm contributing to paying down your separate property note on your house. Am I entitled to any reimbursement for that? Or is that part of, our agreement while I'm living together with you, for example? So defining your property agreements is very important. Same thing, if you're buying a car, and we can call someone your spousal equivalent for conversation today. And what happens if the other person's name is on the title, but you're driving it, and that was intended for you? That can be a problem if you split up, or if one of you passes unexpectedly. What happens? Because you don't have any inheritance rights if you're not enjoying the benefit of married. So, same thing for business transactions, gifts that you're given. Families step in too sometimes when there's a dispute and say, "Wait a minute, this is our stuff. That doesn't belong to the other person." So, these are things that you can outline in your agreement. Same thing for if you're commingling any funds in your checking accounts or a savings account. I mean, believe it or not, some people still combine their funds even though they're not married, and they say, okay, this is the way we're going to do it. But then the conversation doesn't go any farther than that as to who pays what.
I think without these agreements, this is obviously can be messy. So when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Cindy Hyde, family lawyer and author, on the Lance Roberts Show podcast.
You can get daily real investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for Lance's newsletter now at realinvestmentadvice.com.